This video will explore mostly the eastern part of the Dayton District from Springfield a little bit on towards Columbus. Here we see 179, a westbound manifest heading west through London, Ohio, with two C6Ms and a Tier 4 up front and a 230-something car train. I don't remember the exact amount. A train this size on the Dayton District is both impressive and a little concerning. The Dayton District isn't exactly meant for long trains like this, or at least trains with over 100 cars. Later on in the video, I'll explain this why, but in a few minutes, 179 will do the explaining for us, and not in a very good way. But for now, enjoy his two mid-train DPUs pushing as hard as they can. We decided to follow 179 west into Springfield, but halfway near there we could hear the engineer calling out on the radio an emergency response to the dispatcher. They said something about cars on the ground, but when we got up there it was much more than that. When 179 put on the brakes to slow down into Springfield, the DPUs did not respond. While the head end was slowing down, the DPUs kept pushing, and the train bunched up like an accordion, spilling 30 cars on the ground, nearly taking out crossing gates and nearly taking out that Conrail tri-light signal. 171 was a little ways behind 179 at the time of the derailment. When he came into London, the crew had to tie the train down. A new crew got aboard, ran the engines around to the east end of the train, and then they had to go back east to Columbus, long hood forward with the CSX leading. 5112 AC44CW would only be good leading long hood forward at about 20 miles an hour. Once in Columbus, the train would get the power turned around, back on the head end. They'd go north up the Sandusky District into Bellevue, make a left turn at the New Haven connection on the south end of Bellevue, head west across the Fostoria District through Fostoria into Fort Wayne, and go south on the Newcastle District, eventually going into Cincinnati, and then eventually on to Chattanooga, Tennessee. After catching him there at 160, we leaped ahead 2 miles to catch him at 158. Here, it seemed as though he picked up a little bit more speed, with the horn blaring as loud as it was. And here is one more look at 171 in the countryside at milepost 155 just outside of West Jefferson, as he keeps rolling at about 20 miles an hour. This is the last we would see of this 171, and an end to a bizarre 2 days on the Dayton District. On a very windy day, 171 heads west through London with a pretty cool lash-up. The surprise, no, not the C6M leader, but a high hood second and an SD70 ACU third. The high hood was going back to the Sharonville yard to be dropped and then eventually get sent to local service around Ivorydale in that area, probably to work over in Procter or Gamble or something like that. At milepost 155 in West Jefferson, a Loram rail grinder train heads westbound. This train would tie down later that day on the PRR industrial track in London, Ohio. More of that coming up. And we see the same train again here at milepost 158 heading westbound. .179 and a high rail truck race out of London. The high rail truck is going down to Walnut Street to open a derail so the rail grinder train can go into the industrial track and tie down. While he was busy down there doing that, 179 got underway and proceeded to haul his big train out of London. While 179 rolls by, said rail grinder came in. After 179 cleared, it gave us a good shot of the rail grinder coming in on the industrial line. We would get a nice shot of him as he rolled in. This track is all that remains of the double main that used to go through London on the PRR. The track dead ends at a few crossings down near a field, at the end of a BST soap factory. The track then repicks itself back up in South Charleston as a grain loading elevator and an area for Sunrise Co-op potash. But that's about it. The rest of the track was ripped up after the Conrail days. Let's jump to Carlisle for a little bit, milepost 223. In the distance is L10. He's just finished working in Franklin and is waiting to cross over so he can head back west to Middletown. He's waiting for this eastbound rail train number 937, who is going to Springfield to the derailment site at 178 to drop loaded rails to replace the ones that were damaged in the derailment of 179. About 5 minutes after the rail train cleared, L10 finally gets moving west. He's heading back home to Reed Yard in Middletown with an NS SD40-2, which is what they usually primarily use on the locals down here. Tyler over there wanted to check out what was going on the Toledo sub. Since the Toledo sub was about 200 feet from where we are, we decided to move over there. His intuition was correct, as a CSX southbound steel slab loads and steel coil empties, symboled B522, rounded the curve just north of us. Pulled by two big ET-44AHs today, this train comes out of Detroit, Michigan, and heads to the steel plant in Middletown, Ohio. He'll make a left turn at Overpeck Junction and head into the plant that way. He'll actually go over the Dayton District at milepost 231. NS 171 heads westbound into a cool evening sky at milepost 184 in Springfield, Ohio. A bonus tonight was a CN ET-44AC sandwiched between an ES-44AC NS and an NS ET-44AC. On this evening, we were treated to a delightful sight by our friend, Raymond Castle. Raymond here used to be a former Burlington Northern employee and has a lot of VHS tape of trains dating back to the early 1990s. He claims to have recorded over 1,000 trains on VHS, and it's pretty accurate to take his word on it. On another evening, another 171 heads westbound, this time under the Conrail Tri-Light Signal Bridge in London. He's running into the siding and running back out. Dispatchers will often do this to prevent rust growing on the rails, which would save time for a repairman or the ram rail grinder having to come out all the way here to grind the rails. 171 is a rare treat tonight of Dash 9 Duo. Not something so common now in this day and age of new G. Here's a little known fact about the Dayton District. It seems as though all westbounds that run this line have some kind of issue. Well, that's because the Dayton District, mostly west from London into Sharonville, Ohio, was not built for long, fast trains. If you think about it, every 7 or 10 miles there is either a siding, a storage track, a little yard, a diamond, an interlocking, or a passenger station. This was how the New York Central was. At that time, they were running short freights, maybe 80, 90 cars, could handle some locals and passenger trains. The Dayton District really can't handle or was not designed for long trains like this 171, who was 140 plus cars. NS 239, a daily intermodal train from Columbus, Ohio to Cincinnati, Ohio, heads westbound under the nighttime sky at London, Ohio. At the east end of the London siding, CP 160, a red over yellow over red says medium approach. That's telling this westbound 179 to take it at medium speed into the siding and then stop at the next signal ahead, CP 162. .179 a majority of the time will either have a mid-train or end-of-train DPU. On this day, he had a UP AC44CW being used as mid-train DPU service. We later moved up to High Street in London, where NS train 170 was coming in eastbound. For some reason, he stopped at High Street for about 10 minutes, but then, after something got cleared with the dispatcher, he was able to finally move on east. Leading the way is an SD70 ACC, followed by an ES44DC second, and an AC44C6M rebuild third, dead in tow. Now, the term dead in tow doesn't mean that the engine is dead, it just means that the locomotive is not running and is usually being pulled somewhere. After 170 cleared London, 179 heads west. This is the same 179 that we had just seen back at 160 entering the siding. Now he is leaving the siding at CP 162. On another night in London, 179 heads westbound with two EMDs on the head end, a UPST-70AH and an NS Ace. Personally, EMD has a sound that GEs can't replicate. Just listen. The rail fan that you see here in the lower left corner is London resident Caiden Nelson. On another cold day at Plattsburgh, Ohio, milepost 172, a Dash 9 duo pulls an ET-44AC dead in tow on train 171 heading westbound. The open area in front of me used to be the former site of the Big Ford Depot. This Conrail tri-light signal used to be a mile to the west at Buena Vista Road, while the remnants of the depot was still standing here. Eventually it was torn down and the signal was moved here. On another sunny day here at London, an S-178 led by an SD-70 Ace heads eastbound on the main. On another sunny day, two GE rebuilds, an NSC6M and a UPCM44AC, lead 171 uphill westbound through London. I will admit the GE had a pretty nice horn on him. Where our location is the former site of the PRR NYC Diamond with the interlocking tower on the opposite side of 171. Penn Central kept it this way, but kept the bike trail that heads towards Lily Chapel as a spur, eventually removing it out. The NYC portion of the line remains from Lily Chapel all the way into Columbus up to Miami Crossing, where the NYC would cross over the PRR again. The other NYC portion that still exists down here is the one that begins at this crossing in London and works its way west to Cincinnati. On a little bit of a warmer evening in London, Ohio, we see 170 heading eastbound through London as he prepares to enter the siding. Of note is the NS-1072 Illinois Terminal Heritage Unit, second behind the ES-44AC. Here's our other railfan friend, Rex Woods. Rex is also a London, Ohio resident. 179 comes out of the siding after 170 clears. 179 has a BNSF-9 second tonight on the head end, with an ES44AC leading and an ES44AC pushing on the rear of the train. The same night, we witnessed empty coke train 803 fly eastbound through London. He is returning empty from AK Steel in Middletown, headed back to get more coke loads in Portsmouth, Ohio. On a more cloudy and rainy day, I had gotten a call from Raymond Castle that 178 had passed Springfield with the Penn Central in the lead solo. So I hurried up and got down to the former interlocking in London and was able to get a nice shot of him coming around the curve. A couple hours later, and a little bit windy and colder, I had gotten a call from Raymond Castle about another 178 with the 8100 nickel plate heritage unit leading, so I beat it back down to 162 for the catch. On another cloudy day, two SD70 Aces haul a giant 171 westbound out of London. The classic sound of EMDs in high gear is unmistakable. On a brighter sunny day, NS-178 comes slowly into London as he prepares to enter the London siding. Note over on the rock pile to the left as Rex Woods and a couple of his friends have come out to join. The flashing lights on the UP leader gives away that it used to be an ex-Southern Pacific, which we would confirm later with a little bit of research. On another warm morning, NS train 178 heads eastbound through London. He was slowing because the dispatcher was having trouble lining him by the 160 signal, so he had the approach to go up to it. As he was getting up there, the dispatcher was finally able to solve the issue and give him a green signal into Columbus. On another day, we get a rival visitor to the Dayton District, NS 170 with a CSX AC44CW trailing second. It's honestly a real treat to me to see a CSX on the Dayton District, as the only time it happens is usually with grain moves. On a very windy day at milepost 167, a former town called Myers along the NYC portion of the line, we see NS train 171 heading west. 171's trying out a new practice with one locomotive on the head and one mid-train. Today is that such example. Next to EMDs going uphill, I actually think the GVOs, the 44 DCs and ACs, sound really good going uphill. And paired together with an EMD, it sounds amazing.
We'll hold back at EMD. Alright. Once they do it out there where you want to go up the Hagen, over.
a group of rail fans gather at 162 to wave and say hello to 179 heading westbound under the Conrail Tri-Light Signal Bridge. On another day, we see a rare daylight appearance from NS train 238, the counterpart to 239. Leading the way is a fresh AC-44 C6M rebuild as he heads east in the morning. Later on in another day, we see NS 170 heading eastbound at milepost 165. Yet another C6M leader, a fresh one, another C6M second, and a Canadian Pacific GE train. As you could tell from the sound of the wind, it was a pretty windy day, so the audio may On another day at milepost 167, we got to see another all-EMD lash-up with an ace leading 171 by himself and an ACC back there mid-train. You could tell how much this thing is struggling, as apparent by all the black smoke. On a beautiful evening and a gorgeous sunset, a grain train heads eastbound at milepost 173 at Here we see 178 heading eastbound into London at High Street. 178 today is being led by a Union Pacific GE, followed by an NS-944CW. Two SD-70 Aces, only the lead unit running, lead of 171 westbound out of London, Ohio, on a beautiful NS-178, led by a 44 DC Gevo, heads eastbound through London at Main Street under On another night, we observed 239 with a BNSF-9 Solo westbound through London, Ohio. On another nicer day, we observe NS Train 171 with an SD-70 Ace leader heading westbound just outside of West Jefferson. .179 heads westbound at CP 160 on a beautiful sunny morning. On another bright sunny day, we see 179 westbound through London, this time with an AC 44C6M, a Dash 944CW, and a CIT GP12 trailing third. As of the uploading of this video, 179 had started a trend of tying down around 150 just outside of West Jefferson. This particular 179 had sat for 3 days without a crew. An SD70 ACE was shoving on the rear. This may have honestly been one of the loudest and smokiest aces I've ever seen. Couple hours behind that 179, we got a very interesting 171 with a thoroughbred Dash 944CW, a BNSF Heritage 2 SD70 Mac, and an NS SD40-2. All units running elephant style, and all 3 units running. This is a pretty odd lash-up, harkening back to the days of the Dayton District before precision scheduled railroading. After we watched the engines go by, we would eventually chase this guy out to milepost 165 to get a sound of those EMDs running uphill in Notch 7. And boy did it sound awesome. At CP 162, we see 178 with a shiny BNSF 44C4 leading the way eastbound. A fresh C6M leads a loaded grain train coming out of Columbus, heading south towards Georgia, westbound on the Dayton District through London, Ohio. On another night in London, Ohio, an SD-70 Ace leads the 179 charge westbound through London. Pretty good horn, too. On a late night, we see BNSF Power lead a 179 by CP146, which used to be the entrance into Buckeye Yard, which is now an empty space. This 179 would go down 4 miles to the west and tie down at CP150. Sometimes you get lash-ups that just remind you a little bit of the past. Such was the case on this day, as we see 170 roll into the London siding. I believe he was going to go tie down at 160. For the power today was two 944 CWs, one of the horsehead ones leading, and a thoroughbred trailing. Pretty cool to see again, since all the -9s are eventually going to be turned into C6Ms, and that's honestly pretty sad. On another night in London, we see a hilariously short 239 heading westbound with a UPGE. On another evening in Springfield, Ohio, at milepost 184, a place we rail fans call Napa, NS Train 170 comes screaming uphill with an SD-70 Ace and an AC-44C6M in full throttle, and an SD-70 ACE trailing dead in tow, third out. After returning from a 3-day trip in Pennsylvania, we returned to catch NS Train 170 heading eastbound near the War Cemetery in Plattsburgh, Ohio, and through a beautiful rock cut. Later on another night in London, Ohio, we were treated to a special sight of 3 lemons, which I have nicknamed Union Pacifics, leading 178, the leader being an ET-44, second being an Ace, and third being an AC-44CW. On another night in London, Mike Lube leads 44M eastbound through London, Ohio with UP Power. We were out tonight because we heard the NS's hazmat safety train with both 911 and 5642 lashed together for the first time ever was somewhere far behind. So we stayed around, and about another 20 minutes later, that event actually happened. It was an exciting time to finally see both of them together, as the 2 locomotives have never been lashed up together at all once. On another one of those windy days, but still nice out, we see a UPGE leading 179 westbound through London. This train was also a nice surprise because he had a Kansas City Southern Day Mexico SD70 Ace, most notably known as KCS Southern Bells, mid-train today. With spring coming around, as you could see by the green leaves that are starting to bloom everywhere, we see a rather unusual consist for Extra Train 178, symboled M78. Now, M78 is an extra section of 178 that didn't get to go out on 178 when he left. The power today is a UP Ace and an NS SD40-2. Which drew a lot of attention from rail fans north of Columbus. This M78 is going into the siding to meet a 179 who had been tied down at 150 for about 3 days. little bit later, 179 made his appearance. Just like the M78 that just passed, 179 on the head end was all EMDs, but this time aces, an NS SD70 ace, and a Kansas City Southern de Mexico SD70 ace Southern Bell. Awesome. Later on during the rainy day, we see a weird kind of machine cleaning ballast. Well, it's called a ballast cleaner. He was cleaning ballast along the Dayton District starting in Springfield and making his work all the way to London. Here he would go past the 162 signal, use the switch to get into the siding, and then he would back his way down the industrial track and back his way all the way up to the PRR depot. The crew would eventually shut everything off and leave in those trucks. Here we see a short 178 as he slowly rolls by 162, preparing to stop at 160 on the main line 2 miles east of here. I say short, but he's just barely over 100 cars today. It's pretty cool because he's got 2 GEVOs, an SD40-2, and another GEVO back there mid-train. Here at CP 182 in Springfield, we see 178 being led by a UP C6M rebuild. The UP leader is an ex-Southern Pacific. here through the beautiful countryside at a place used to be called K-Switch, milepost 169 on the Dayton District, we see NS train 179 as he heads towards the sunset. Of note is the SD 40-2 trailing third on the head end.